Hey everybody, I'm Tom Zuba. I'm that guy with the two dead kids and the dead wife. And the name of this podcast intentionally is Becoming Radiant. My intention is to introduce you to people who are on the verge of becoming radiant. Fascinating stories about fascinating people. And honestly, never in a million years did I think I would be introducing you to my brother John's kids. But I am. I'm going to introduce you tonight to the number one grandchild, Danny Zuba, and his little brother, Sammy Zuba. And Dan, my hunch is you do not know this, but I very, very clearly remember a Sunday morning. I'm living in Arizona. It's in the middle of the winter, so I'm at the pool. And I came into the apartment, the phone rang, it was my brother John, and the news was, we have a baby boy, we have a baby boy, we have a baby boy. And he asked me to be your godfather. I remember that conversation. I remember that day like it was yesterday. And how old are you now?
38. 38 years ago.
That's 38 years ago. I want to show you guys a picture that I don't know if this is true for you, but there are certain moments in my life that it's like a Polaroid snapshot, and I remember it as if it was yesterday. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but this is a picture from my wedding to Trish. So it was April 27th of 1985. I can hear your mother say to the photographer, you're not going to get our feet in the shot, are you? You're not going to get our feet in the shot because I don't have my shoes on. And he assured her that her feet were not going to be in the shot. And her feet are in the shot and she doesn't have any shoes on. And you know who's also in that photograph?
That would be Ben, wouldn't
That
it?
would be Ben. That would be Ben, the middle brother. I
Mhm.
love that photo. And this is the one I posted on Facebook. This is an iconic photograph in my memory. Do you have any memory of that, Dan?
I do. I don't know if I should or if it's just from all the images, but I have memories of that wedding.
So I was born in 85. You were born in 83?
82.
82.
I
So,
would have been 3.5 at that
okay.
wedding.
So you're 3.5. You're dancing with Trisha's niece, Mariah, and you were the ring bearer.
Yep.
You got to stay
I,
up you got to stay up really, really late.
yep. I remember dancing, and then I remember sleeping. I want to say in like some luggage or something in a separate room. That's what stands out to me.
Have you ever seen it before, Sam?
I don't think I saw it on Facebook this morning, but it doesn't ring a bell. I'm really impressed with Dan's shoes.
I know, I know.
Solid.
Shoes are
Solid.
nice.
So literally, you got someone measured you for that little tux,
That's so funny.
and then I love this. I have two of them actually. I'm going to show you guys this one.
That's Erin, right?
Yep. So that's Danny and Ben looking at their little cousin Erin.
And that's in our house in Rockford, right? I remember that wallpaper in that bed.
Yeah, yeah. So this is how I wanted to start out. To the best of my knowledge, we have never, ever, ever talked about this. And I've always, always, always wondered. I've always wondered. So Danny was born in 1982. And then 7 years later, yeah, 7 years later, Erin was born, Sam was born, and Megan was born. So there were three cousins from three brothers that were born within 6 months of each other. And when Erin was 18 months, so you were like, well, Sammy was 14 months.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, you were 8?
8.5, yep.
8.5. So you grow up, there's this little cousin, then you have a brother, then Jim and Linda have a little girl. And all of a sudden, this little Erin, I don't know. What do you remember happened, and who explained to you what happened?
Yeah, it's funny on a couple of things. One, I don't think we've ever discussed any of this. So why not do it on a podcast? You know, just to kind of get things started. How we got here from discussing music, but yeah, I it's one of the moments that I do remember pretty vividly, and I remember it in a couple different reasons. If we go back a few months before, we had Easter out at your house, and Trici's house in Chicago. And I remember that day playing a lot with Erin. I would kind of take care of the kids here and there, but I remember playing with her, and then, had fun and this and that. And then I remember, fast forward to that day in July, I remember my parents getting the call and them sharing with me, that she had passed. And I remember going outside, and we had a swing set with a little teeter-totter, and I just sat there. I remember like it was yesterday. I remember sitting there just thinking about that, and not really understanding it, and just kind of keep waiting for that to not be real. Just that it was more of okay, yeah, that's where it is now, but they're going to come out and say she's doing better now. I mean, I think, as an 8-year-old, I mean, that would be, I don't know, maybe second grade. So to grasp the magnitude of that, that was tough for that age. But that was my earliest memory of somebody passing away. And then, all that came with that, going to Chicago, the funeral, the visitation. I remember a lot of those parts, but vividly sitting on the teeter-totter, and then my parents kind of coming back out and checking on me.
So I don't know if you know this, but when I was 6, my little brother died. So you were 8 when your cousin died. I was 6 when my brother died. And I remember the funeral was at St. James. And I remember as 6 years old, the whole family marched into the church behind the white casket. And I remember thinking, dang, this is really, really cool. It's like we're marching in a parade. All these people are looking at us. And I was kind of like, waving to the left, waving to the right. I mean, that's what a 6-year-old, that was part of what I thought. I had no concept of what dead really, really, really meant. Do you remember anything about that visitation or that funeral?
You might laugh at this part, but I do remember you and Trish getting into a limo, and that was the first time that I saw the limo, and I said, wow, how lucky are they? They get to go into a limo, just not putting it all together. And I remember my dad looking at me, some comment about how that's not a lucky position to be in. But that was the first time I saw a limo. So I'm not, putting it all together. Again, I'm 8 years old. And I just remember, obviously, just still not like kind of waiting for something to change while I was there. Like, for you guys to say, she's okay, because I was thinking about it, like, there's Sam and there's Megan, they're all the same age, and my little cousins, and I remember that kind of being a blur, but just going to Chicago and that whole experience, because we didn't go to Chicago that often, so anytime going to Chicago was an experience in of itself.
Do you remember people crying, like at the visitation or the,
Mhm. Yes.
like, did that bother you?
The whole thing, I remember just feeling weird. And
I,
I mean, I remember just feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to be there.
yeah, I remember at Danny's visitation, sitting next to my great aunt, we called her Pruny, and she was crying and crying and crying. And I remember I kind of like elbowed her, and I was like, "What are you crying about? You know, what's the big deal? Stop it, stop it." Uh, was there a time when you thought, well, I thought it was interesting that you verbalized that out loud about the limo. To me, that's the same as me marching down, the aisle at Bernadette's thinking, this is really, really cool. I had never done this before. Um, I'm, I mean, I think that that's probably what an 8-year-old would do is say, that's cool. Uncle Tom and Aunt Trish get to go in a limo. Do you remember anywhere along the line where you thought, oh, I better not talk about this anymore?
About like just the experience of being there.
Well, no, just the fact that, hey, I got a cousin that's dead and doesn't seem like we're talking about this anymore.
No, because I think like once it kind of happened, and then I mean, we come back to Rockford, and then it's kind of on with life. I remember discussing it. Actually, no, I don't really remember talking about it too much after that.
Yeah.
I remember talking about it with you a few times, from a child's perspective, specifically about that photograph that you have of Erin in that wicker chair. And I always loved that picture. And
Yeah.
I to this day, I can picture it vividly. But no, I don't remember talking about it much afterwards. Or at
Okay.
least it doesn't stand out to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sam, this has always fascinated me. Sean was 3 when his mom died. And for the life of me, I can't fathom what that must have been like for your mom to be there. And then the next day at 3, your mom isn't there. So I'm wondering, you were part of this trio, you, Erin, Megan, and even though, you weren't even 2 years old, at some point, someone let you know that there was a third person who's no longer here anymore. Do you know you're on mute?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was just.
So I'm just like, what's your earliest memory of realizing, oh, there was someone else?
Yeah, I think I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember seeing the picture of Erin in the wicker chair that Dan mentioned, and for some reason that is like the iconic photo of Erin that I always remember. And I remember seeing it, and it's just kind of like, well, who is this? Like I know who Rory is, I know who Sean is. Who is this person? And then when I don't remember being told this explicitly, but at some point someone had to tell me like, yeah, this was your cousin. And just like Megan is your age, Erin was also your age. And like, I don't remember when that conversation happened, but like, even looking back now, it's so surreal to think that, you know how many photos there are of Megan and I standing together in front of the wall, like as we would age, because we were the same age. And just that there could have been a third, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, there's another photo that I couldn't find, but it's another one of those moments that it's like a Polaroid snapshot. It was either Christmas Day or whenever the family got together for Christmas. And my hunch is back there, we did celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day. And it was at my parents' house, and it's a crib. And the 3 of you are dressed in, your Christmas outfits, and you're all standing in the crib, So Erin would have been, just a year, because she would have been a year on January 2nd. So you're all kind of holding on to the edge, looking up, and someone snapped a shot of you. And it'd be interesting to kind of go back to see, was that the last actual shot of the three of you together? Or, over the course of the next 6 months, did anyone, capture that? So fast forward, you have this Uncle Tom and this Aunt Trish that live in, Chicago. They have 2 more babies, Rory and then Sean. And then all of a sudden, after Christmas on New Year's Day, the news is that Aunt Trish is dead. Do you remember, like, who delivered that news to you guys?
Yeah, just to make sure I have the dates right. It was 1999 when she passed away, right?
Yeah, New Year's Day of '99. So how old would you?
So I would have been just about turning 17. So I was a junior in high school. I remember that. I remember that Christmas with you guys and having a lot of interesting I don't remember the conversations, but I remember specifically talking to Aunt Trish. And then I remember getting a call. I don't know if it was my mom or I think it was my dad. Because it was New Year's Eve. So I was at a good friend of mine's house and we were having everybody was over there hanging out. I remember getting a call and him saying, and Trish is in the hospital and she's not doing well. It's not looking good. I want to say they all came into the Chicago that night. I don't remember, but I feel like I ended up staying at the person's house I was at, a friend of mine, Greg's house, and we all ended up staying as a way that I didn't have to go back to the house. So maybe I'm not remembering that part right. I remember just thinking, no, there's no way. Like it's pretty bad, not luck, but situation to lose one person. You're not going to lose 2, and then I remember the next day being told once I got back home. Actually, they didn't go to Chicago now that I think about it, because I feel like they were. Oh wait, did they? Do you remember if they were with you? My parents?
I was kind of in a blur.
You were in a blur.
There's a couple of things I remember, but
because I feel like my Aunt Franny told me, and I don't know why that memory is coming back. She might have been there, or she might have called. Somebody then told me on that day.
So it's interesting because after Erin died, I'll never forget, your dad said to me, well, at least the worst thing that's going to happen to you has already happened. And I remember thinking, no guarantees, no guarantees whatsoever. What do you remember, Sam?
Interesting. I vividly remember like those 2 weeks of of Christmas through the funeral, because we did Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's that year, right? On Christmas Day. Maybe I don't remember
No, isn't it interesting?
Was it the later one?
No, because we were in Oak Park and we came in the 26th. So maybe the Zuba Christmas was on the 26th that year.
But we did do it at Grandma and Grandpa's, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, the cousins were all playing that day. And, you guys lived in Chicago and I was in 4th grade. So I didn't have much of a strong relationship with you or Aunt Trish at that point, because I was 9 or 10. But I remember the cousins were playing and I had begged for Connor and Andrew to spend the night at my house. My parents said no, and I just threw a fit. And so my mom took me into that room where the Christmas tree was, and Aunt Trish was in there. And I remember they were talking for 20 minutes. And I even remember what they were talking about. Rory was about to go to a Blackhawks game, or had just gone to a Blackhawks game with somebody for the first time. And they were talking about that. And then I don't know why, I just vividly remember seeing Aunt Trish on the couch. And it's one of the only things that I can pinpoint about Aunt Trish. But then, after that, I remember when she got sick, I went and stayed with my Aunt Mary and Uncle Mark it was 3 nights. And I remember thinking why can't I come home? Why isn't anybody letting me come home? Why am I out here? But then when I finally did come home, remember they sat us down, or they sat me down and told me, and it was just, I think the first thing out of my mouth was, we're still going to see her at Christmas next year, right? Like, there's no way she's, like, I didn't even know what dead meant, you know, that someone is just not here anymore. And then just the next few days of, like, I remember we stayed in that motel in Chicago. We brought the Nintendo 64. It was just like, it was just so weird. Like, I just didn't know, like, what is going on here? What is happening? And I remember seeing Trish either at the visitation or at the funeral. And that was the first time I'd ever, you know, seen or been to a funeral before. And that's just like imprinted in my mind of like that experience of seeing someone.
Do you remember seeing her dead body in the casket?
You do.
You do.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it was so strange. I just, like, it's just a lot I remember, like, I think my dad and I walked up there and my dad said, you know, say a prayer for Uncle Tom and Rory and Sean. And it's just like, it's just mind blowing for like a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old to try to process that.
You know what's interesting? So Sean was 9 when Rory died. So you have a sense for what it was like for you to see Aunt Trish. I mean, none of us can imagine what a 9-year-old experiences when his older brother dies. This is interesting. My hunch is you guys don't know this, but I insisted that Rory and Sean and I see Trish's body first. So I had both of them by the hand and we walked in. And this is what Sean said. I'll never forget it. Ugh, she looks ugly. She looks so horrible. What did they do to her hair? Oh, she looks so ugly. She looks so ugly. And, you know, Rory, who is always perfect, is just standing there frozen, you know, Shawnee, don't say that, don't say that. And I remember thinking, well, he's speaking the truth. I mean, she looks horrible. She looks horrible. And I decided that I would let family see her. And then we were going to slam that casket shut where she would come back to haunt me. And I went out and I grabbed Trisha's mom and I said, I want you to come in and take a look at your daughter. And so I, you know, walked her over and there was a sofa right in front of the open casket. And I said, Eileen, I want you to sit down. I want you to sit down. How do you think she looks? Now, this is her baby girl. And she said, oh, she looks beautiful. She looks so beautiful. And I said, okay, you know, just keep focusing on her. I'm going to come back. Keep focusing on her. So I kind of circled around, you know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And then I went up to her and I said, how do you think she looks? And Eileen said, not good. She doesn't look good at all. And I said, I'm going to close the casket. Trish would not want people to see her like that. And she said, I think that that's a good idea.
Oh.
Do you guys, so, you know, nobody other than family actually got to see her body. Like I said, I knew she would haunt me if I did. Do you remember anything about the funeral or anything about, you know, the days after?
Yeah. I remember, so that at that funeral, I was obviously a little older, but I remember still sitting there thinking that, you know, maybe there's a chance that she'll get better, you know, as naive and as foolish as that is. I also remember I had a Walkman and I was listening to a song on repeat over and over and over again. And it's one of my favorite songs. And that song sometimes will kind of bring me back to there and just kind of like listening to it. And then I remember, like Sam said, walking through Chicago and it being cold and staying in that motel and stuff. And then I'm trying to remember it. Afterwards, I feel like we came to Chicago a few times, and now I'm going to get my dates off. But I do remember there was a period then shortly after where you, Sean, and Rory came to our house and hung out there for a while. But I feel like it was summer, so I feel like
your parents bought the new house. We pretty much spent the entire summer at your parents' house, and I was laying on a raft in that pool.
I remember in the pool. I remember Zelda with Rory, and I remember Ricky Martin.
Yes. Living La Vida Loca.
That was
I remember all that together.
Yeah, that was the song of the summer.
Yeah.
What was the song you were listening to over and over again?
It's called "Seek Up." It's a Dave Matthews song. I had it. It's a very long. There's a lot of instrumental in it. It's a very beautiful song. And I just remember there's some parts in there where it's kind of like it's a very emotional song. I just remember just thinking about it and trying to like comprehend the magnitude of what was happening.
I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, Sam. What's your memory of all of that?
Well, so I remember too. This may have been before the funeral or after, but didn't Grandpa get really sick and he couldn't come for a couple days? He had like bronchitis or something.
Yep.
And I remember thinking like, oh, so is he gonna die too? Like, is that just what happens? Like people get sick and then they die.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember much until the summer. But then the summer was like awesome because Rory and Sean you guys basically lived with us, and we were just like nonstop playing for 3 months. And I remember you in the pool, and I remember thinking like, this is really awesome. Like we've got this new house with the pool. Our family is now staying with us.
Yeah.
So I think Star Wars came out, and Rory and I went and saw that, and then we played Star Wars for like a month after that, and it's really interesting. I definitely remember the Viva, or what was it, the Ricky Martin song?
Leaving what up? Yeah. Can you imagine though? So your parents have 3 kids. They're really, really excited. They buy the house of their dreams. It has a pool, and they're the older brother, Tom, whose wife is dead, with the 2 kids, like comes for the weekend and stays the whole summer. And I'm sure, at night they're like, how do we get him to leave? How do we get him to leave? How do we get it? He won't get off that raft.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that, like it was, so obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about this shortly, but Rory and Zelda and me was always a connection.
Yeah.
But he never wanted to play. It was Zelda on Nintendo 64. I'm a big video game fan, and there were a handful of times where you'd get stuck, and Rory knew how to do it. He didn't want to do it, and I don't know if he actually had ever done it, but he knew how to do it. So like I'd get to a spot and be like, all right, what do I do? Because he would have been
7. He was 7.
Okay, so he was then 10 years younger than me. So
yeah,
I remember playing that a ton.
Did
you guys stay in there? Did you guys all stay in one room? I don't remember that.
We must have. I don't know. I might have been on the raft at the pool all night long. I have no idea. Do you guys remember Anne Marie at the visitation or at the funeral?
No, I don't.
So Anne Marie had a little baby.
Jared?
No.
I don't remember.
So Trish,
it doesn't stand out.
Yeah.
I remember seeing all my, aunts and uncles and speaking with them, but nothing like.
Yeah. So Trish died on New Year's Day. Noah was born the day before.
Oh, that's right.
Wow. I didn't
think about that. Think about that. As Noah was coming in, Trish was leaving. And I am absolutely positive that as the 2 of them were like kind of crossing the veil or whatever, because Noah was, I don't know how to describe it, but Noah needed people to settle him down when he was little. When he was 2 months old, 3 months old, 7 months old, 9 months old. And I could hold him and walk with him, and I could always settle him down. And I thought that was some type of a connection between he, Trish, and I. But yeah, can you imagine? Anne Marie is in the hospital, really, really excited, giving birth to the baby. And the news is that her sister-in-law is dying. Anne Marie's a nurse. She knows 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
guys?
now that I don't remember that. Like, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever actually put that as the dates. I guess I would have thought it was just the next year. But
No,
yeah, that makes sense.
no. I don't know if you guys know this, but in the age of COVID, we've heard a lot about respirators. So many people have been put on respirators, and that's not a great thing. So Trish was on a respirator, and what the doctor said to me is, there's one more procedure. I want to try one more procedure. I think she might have a clot in the valve to her heart, and I'm going to try to go in and move the clot to get the blood flowing again. And he said, but I need you to know that it's very, very dangerous, and she's really, really, really compromised, and she could die during this procedure. And I said, well, what happens if you don't do the procedure? And he said, well, she's going to die. And I said, do the procedure as quickly as you possibly can. So we stayed in the waiting room there, knowing that, my wife was undergoing this really, really sensitive procedure. And time passed and he came out. And I could tell by the look on his face that the news was not good. And I wondered, had she died? So I went up to him and I said, how did it go? And he said, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And I took a deep breath and I said, so nothing has changed? And he said, nothing. He said, nothing has changed. He said, get everyone you know to pray. He said, the only thing that's going to save her is a miracle. So we literally wrote up a list, and Mariah, Danny, your dance partner from my wedding, she started calling people saying, Trisha's in dire straits. We need prayers. We need prayers. We need prayers. We need prayers. That was probably 4 p.m. on New Year's Eve. We go into the evening, we go into the morning of New Year's Day, and nothing has changed. Trisha's on a ventilator, and the decision was made to take her off the ventilator. And what happens when you take compromised people off the ventilator is they die. Do you know who took Trish off the ventilator?
No.
Your mom.
Oof.
Yep. That's what your mom did. That's what your mom did for us. Your mom did for us, knowing that, I gave her permission, but knowing that by removing that tube, then Trish was going to die. I'm wondering, at the age of 9 and at the age of 17, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking you, did you guys ever think, I wonder what it's like to be Rory and Sean with a dead mom?
Yeah, I thought more from Rory's perspective. Sean was significantly younger, and I remember him at the funeral being like a top, like very, very young. I think maybe just said 3, but yeah, wondering what that would be like, knowing that your mom had passed away and that you could, or that you have a sister, but what does that mean to you? Never knowing, never talking, never, have a relationship. And I've thought many times of the age game from your perspective, looking at Sam or at Megan, and or Rory, next to whichever one of his cousins would be the closest age, and as they're experiencing milestones, high school, college, wedding, what have you.
So like when the 3 of us would enter the room for a Thanksgiving or a family birthday party or a Christmas, like, was it apparent to you guys that, oh, they're missing something that everybody else has, and that's the mom and the wife? Or did it just seem like, well, it's Tom and the boys?
No, I mean, I think like I do remember earlier on thinking, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to make you sad, and that was, I distinctly remember that that's how I thought people would want to be, to
Yeah.
not bring up somebody's name for fear of causing you pain.
Yeah.
And then I remember distinctly, just, I mean, from the many, many conversations I've heard that's not, necessarily how you want to talk about it. You want to remember them and bring up their names. And so I remember a distinct change in that over the years, even around holidays and birthdays and things like that. But yeah, I remember just kind of thinking, oh, okay, like, don't say anything. Don't want to upset them.
Yeah, I think that's I know that's in the air we breathe. I mean, that's what the collective culture has created. It's like, oh, don't mention Tricia's name or Erin's name, because then maybe Tom will remember that they're dead. And unless you're living it, there'd be no way to know that almost with every breath I take, I'm aware of the fact that they're dead. It's like nobody has to remind me, or no one's going to bring it up. Sam, what are your thoughts? Because you were so much younger than Danny.
Yeah, to be honest, and I it breaks my heart to say this, but it was almost just like, oh, it's Tom and the boys,
Yeah.
That was just the way it was.
Yeah.
And it was never really openly talked about after they died. So
yeah,
that was just what was normal to me. It was after Rory died that's when it was like, that's when to me it felt like there's something missing here.
Yeah. So let's go to that summer, because that summer, I even actually did have fun. I was very, very appreciative that your parents let me, freeload at their house for the entire summer. But I do think that that's something about kids, and that kids can live in the present moment. And Rory and Sean were with their cousins. There was a lot to do. They loved the video games. And it was fun. So, Rory was 7. He turned 8 that July. So, Rory's 8, Rory's 9, Rory's 10, Rory's 11. What are your memories of him?
He was the most remarkable kid. I was older than him, but he was so much smarter than me in every single way that it was almost intimidating. Like I dare not question him on anything, because I just knew that whatever we were talking about, he knew more about it than I did.
Yeah. Do you remember, like, was he? Well, I'll share this. When we were living in California, so he was in 3rd and 4th grade, particularly when he was in 3rd grade. When he was in 3rd grade, it was clear to him. It finally sunk in that he was this genius, and he would just like lord his intelligence over absolutely everyone. And, I got this from grandma, but like I would grab his arm and I would say, you can't talk like that. You can't embarrass people. That's not right. You have to tone it down. You have to tone it down. You have to tone it down. We all know how smart you are, but you have to be kind. And to his credit, 3 months of me tugging him on the arm, I felt like he did, find an appropriate place so he wasn't lording it over everyone. I'm not sure if that was the case when I wasn't there, but how did he use his intelligence, Sam, would you say?
It was more, it wasn't as if like he lorded it over me, but it was like when we saw Star Wars episode 1, when it came out, we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, there were so many explosions. It was so cool. And Rory is like talking about the genealogy of the characters dating back to episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then like pre-theories of just like fan fiction that had been written about it. And so he just, whether it was that or it was, you know, when we would play Mario Party or Zelda, he just knew it. Like Dan said, when you would play Zelda, he would know what to do. Like he just knew it. So it wasn't like he was lording it over me, but it's just like a great resource for whatever we were doing, because he knew so much about whatever the topic was.
When he died, one of the ways I described a huge, huge source of my pain is that I loved being alive in a world where Rory Brennan Zuba was my personal docent, because like you said, he knew everything about everything. So he enhanced, you know, he gave multiple layers to whatever it was that was in front of us. I remember he loved Einstein. I took him to the Lawrence. I took both he and Sean. You know, Sean got dragged along to everything. I took them to the Lawrence Hall of Science, which is at UC Berkeley, and there was a huge Einstein display. Einstein's glasses, his typewriter, his writing, everything. And when we were done, Rory, you know, really gently said, "Daddy, could I explain Einstein's theory of relativity to you?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, you could give it a go, but be really, really gentle." So he's in 4th grade, and he's, you know, very carefully explaining it to me, and he could tell there's a complete blank look on my face. And he said, "You didn't really understand that, did you?" And I said, "I tried. I really tried." He said, "Okay, I'm going to try it one more time." You know, and he broke it down even more. And there were glimpses. He could tell glimpses of recognition. And he was like, "You know, I think that's enough for today, Dad, but you did a really, really good job." And one other, he loved Star Wars. He absolutely loved Star Wars. He loved Lord of the Rings. Oh my Lord, he loved Lord of the Rings. He also loved The Matrix. And I'll never forget, we were living here and he said, "Let's watch The Matrix together, Dad, you know, at the first one, but I'm going to stop it at certain places because I know there's going to be parts that you won't really understand. So I'll explain it to you. And then if you have questions, you know, feel free to ask questions." So, you know, that's my 8-year-old, or you know, he's probably 11 or 12 then, you know, docent, helping me navigate the world.
Tom, I remember, I forget how old we were, but this was after Aunt Tricia died, and Rory, Sean, and I had spent the night at Grandma and Grandpa's, and we went to Mass with them the next morning. And I remember we're driving home, and Rory and I are in the backseat talking about, like, you know, what was that? You know, what did we just do? And so we get back to Grandma and Grandpa's, and Rory is like, I forget exactly what he said, but the gist of it was he sat Grandma down and he was like, what is that all about? And Grandma kind of explained what she believed and the faith aspect. And for like 20 minutes, Rory is just like, "Well, what about this though? What about this?" And Grandma's like, at one point, Grandma was like, "It's just faith. You just have to have faith. Like, I can't explain all of this to you." But Rory is just like counterpoint after counterpoint. It was so funny. He was like, I don't know, 10
Was
or
he
11.
being slightly respectful with Grandma?
Yeah, he was being very respectful. He was just like, it wasn't adding up to him. You
Yeah.
know, he couldn't rationalize it. And he just kept going. And Grandma just eventually was like, "It's just about faith."
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you should mention that because Rory absolutely loved to read. I mean, he just read voraciously. Many of the books in back of me are his. And Trish died, Rory's in 2nd grade. And at the time, the parents prepared their 2nd graders to make their first communion. And I remember there was a golden book. That was the syllabus or the directory or whatever. And I was supposed to sit down and we were supposed to read the golden book. And like I said, Rory loved to read. And he just bucked and bucked. He didn't want to do it. And I said, "Honey, what is the matter? You know, you love this kind of stuff. Don't you want to make your first communion?" He said, no, Daddy, I don't. He said, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't want to make my first communion. And I took a really, really deep breath and I said, well, then you don't have to make your first communion. And for us, that was the end of us going to the Catholic Church on a regular basis. Now, all three of our kids were baptized. Erin's funeral and Trici's funeral were at the Catholic Church, but it was my second grade-year-old son that gave me permission to say, hey, not working for me so much. And I want to tell you something else. When he was 12, that summer was really, really hard for him. And he said, Dad, I can't sleep at night. I can't sleep at night. He said, I just keep thinking, man is going to destroy planet Earth. Man is going to destroy planet Earth. We're so reckless. We don't care about the environment. There's so many nuclear bombs. He said, it would actually be better for nature if man completely ceased to exist. The animals would live in peace. The flowers and the plants would flourish. I hate to say it, but if, mankind is destroyed once and for all, that wouldn't be a bad thing. This is my 12-year-old son. So I'm thinking, okay. So I said to him, let's make a list of all the people who have changed the world, because one human being can change the world. Let's study them. I honestly believe this. And I thought, I didn't tell him this, but I thought, when you're an adult, I believe you're talented enough, you're sensitive enough, you're smart enough that you actually could change the world. So he said, well, okay, I suppose, Gandhi, well, let's study Gandhi. And he said, the Dalai Lama, he's certainly changed the world. Well, Nelson Mandela is alive, but yeah, I want to study him. And he goes, well, okay. I said nothing. Okay, we'll put Jesus on the list, but only from a historical perspective. I'm just going to study him from a historical perspective, not the savior of the world. I was like, okay. So that was Rory's, blossoming relationship with religion and spirituality, et cetera, et cetera. So what some of the listeners might not know is that when Rory was 13 and a half, he had a seizure. He went to 7th grade for 2 days, and the night before he was supposed to start the 3rd day of 7th grade, he had a seizure. Do you guys remember hearing about that?
I remember being out in the lanai and thinking, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I mean, so if we think about like just that, would that have been 2004?
2004.
Okay, so 2004. So I had just been married for a year and had Haley, my oldest daughter, was born. So kind of during that time period, I was more removed. Like, I knew wife, new child, but I remember that and thinking like, you've got to be kidding me, and like thinking that there was like a test that was going to happen, and then based on that, maybe it was just a fluke type thing, or it could be bad news. And then I remember it being that it was cancer, and just like couldn't comprehend that could actually happen, just like even just statistically, like to you, and then I remember, so would that have been in the summer?
So he had the seizure in August, okay. And we spent September and October being misdiagnosed and misdiagnosed and misdiagnosed. We went from RMH to Children's in Chicago. Some people thought he had Hashimoto's encephalitis, this, that, and the other thing, all different types of treatment. He probably had 10 different MRIs. There was always a hot spot on his left temporal lobe. Some of the radiologists thought it stayed the same. Others thought it was getting bigger. Others said, no, it's shrinking. I remember saying, why the hell can't all the radiologists sit at a table and agree? And they looked at me like I had three heads. It's like, no, that will never happen. One radiologist will never cross or disagree with another. I remember in early November, a female radiologist, it was a Thursday, she called me and she said, I read Rory's latest film, and I'm really, really happy to tell you, he does not have cancer. This is not cancer. I just exhaled. I mean, every single time someone said it wasn't cancer, I mean, I was so, so grateful. 1 week later, he's having a biopsy that resulted in them removing Rory's left temporal lobe, cutting off a piece of his skull, removing the entire left temporal lobe, putting the piece of the skull back, putting staples in his head. And not only does he have a terminal cancer, but he had a stroke during surgery. So I went from no cancer to your kid's gonna die in about a week. Sam, what do you remember about the beginning of that?
Yeah, I remember when he had the first seizure, but I remember thinking like he's going to be fine, solely because there's no way that this happens again. There's no way that this happens for the third time. And then I remember when he had this surgery and had this stroke, my mom came home and she just like walked in the door and just lost it. Just couldn't stop crying. And that's when I knew like, oh God, like something bad is going on. And then the next, I don't know, what was it, the next 3 or 4 months were just like kind of a blur. I mean, he just, after that surgery, he never really got better, did he?
Actually, no. What happened was I couldn't figure this out. They removed his left temporal lobe. They put the staples in his head. And because of the stroke, they transferred us to the Rehab Institute of Chicago. And what was fascinating to me is that's where Tricia's first job was. She worked in that building. And outside our window, I could see the hospital that I was born in. So, we tell ourselves stories to survive. And the story that I told myself is, we're going to be the miracle. Tricia's right here. This is where she worked. The hospital I was born at is outside the window. We're going to beat the odds. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Now I know what my life is about. Dead daughter, dead wife, kid with a glioblastoma. But because everyone's praying and chanting and beating drums, he's going to survive. That's honestly what kind of pulled me along. And they said that he would probably be in rehab for like 4 or 5 weeks. And what they were doing is they were building him up in order to give him chemo and radiation. So they're building him up, to knock him down, knowing damn well that he was not going to survive. He was not going to survive. And I remember talking to the radiologist at Northwestern. Her name's Dr. Marymount. Many people are aware of who she is. So it's me, Rory, and the doctor in her little office. And she's explaining that they're going to make this cap for my 13-year-old son. And they were going to put all these holes in it. And they were just going to bombard his brain. It's called whole brain radiation. And she said, it's not rocket science. She said, anyone can do it. They can do it for you back home in Rockford. And I remember Rory said, am I going to lose my hair? And she said, yeah, you will. And just the look on his face. Because hair was a big thing for him. I don't know if you remember, but he would dye it blue and the gel, and that was his signature. So she said to me, she said, Mr. Zuba, I need some papers for you to sign, so come out in the hall. Rory's in the office. I'm out in the hall with her thinking I have to sign some papers, and people are coming and going. She said to me, She said, how smart is your son? And I said, oh, he's brilliant, on the Stanford nines, 99th percentile. And she said, that's good. She said, that's good. Because she said the long-term effect of the radiation is it's going to destroy his brain somewhat. So his IQ will definitely go down. And then you know what she said? She said, oh my God, she said, he's not going to live that long. I forgot, he's terminal. Oh, we don't have to worry about that. And I looked at her and I said, what? And we're standing out in the hallway. And she said, it's terminal. I mean, he's going to die from this. That was the first time anyone had said, or I was able to take it in, that my 13-and-a-half-year-old son was not going to live. So she said, well, we better go back in the office. So I'm looking at Rory. I know he's going to die. I put a big smile on my face. We went back to Children's Memorial, and we had already signed up to go see a Rugrat movie. It was a Friday afternoon. So I'm sitting next to him in the Rugrat movie, and the only thing I could think of is, he's going to die. 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 Like I said, we were supposed to be at the rehab for about 5 weeks. And after about 10 days, the doctor said, your son has made unbelievable progress. So I'm gonna release him. It was the day before Thanksgiving. And Aunt Mary came with Connor and Sean. They picked us up. They brought us home. We actually had Thanksgiving at your parents' house that year. I'm pretty sure that they had tables set up. And the thought was, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? And everybody, Greg and Linda and Anne-Marie, were researching. And the decision was to take him to Houston. There was this really expensive, experimental, controversial treatment. And your dad said, well, why don't we check it out? Why don't we check it out? So your dad, Sean, and Rory and I, we went for about 4 or 5 days right before Christmas. And we stayed in this flea bag motel. Do not ask me why we didn't look at each other and say, hey, how about if we find another hotel? But I think we were just so shell-shocked. And I don't know if your dad ever told you about this, but people in Rockford told me about this, healer that was in Houston, this guy with this huge electromagnetic box with holes in it, and it was free. So we went a couple of days, and like, you put your hands in the box, and somehow that was supposed to help you heal. And we were just so desperate. We laughed and laughed, but okay. And one of the women we met there, she said that she had a healing touch and she worked on people's feet. So again, I was so desperate. I said, well, that's cool. This is where we're staying. And she and her daughter came. She worked on my feet. She worked on John's feet. She worked on Rory's feet. She worked on Sean's feet. I mean, that's how, desperate.
I do remember a lot of that. I remember I remember when my dad came out and said he was going with you, and how excited he was to go with you and Rory. And I remember, again, growing up in a house where my mom being a nurse and always kind of talking in medical terms, and then it almost being like, well, now we're just talking about different types of healers and treatments and food and, just that kind of desperation of, if somebody would have said, hey, eat a bunch of fill in the blank, it's kind of like, well, let's give it a shot.
Totally.
Let's give it a shot.
Totally. We tried absolutely everything. But to your point, Sam, what I couldn't figure out is, after Thanksgiving, we had already planned it, but Rory, Sean, Connor, and I, we went with Mike and Ann to White Pines. And Rory hiked. He walked up and down the stairs. I honestly thought, well, maybe someone made a mistake, because this kid does not seem like he had brain cancer. Doesn't seem like he just had major brain surgery. But in retrospect, they had removed so much of the cancer that other than his right side, which is affected because of the stroke, he was good. I mean, he was really, really good. In looking back, that cancer grows so quickly after, from Thanksgiving to the first of the year. I mean, it was a very, very quick decline. Do you guys remember, were you at that candlelight vigil that last night?
Yes.
Was that the night before he died?
Yeah.
At your house?
Yeah, it was outside. People were gathered outside his bedroom window.
I wasn't there. Was it a Sunday night? He died Monday morning. Am I remembering that correctly?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I remember. I can't remember why I was there, but I remember it.
I feel like I was there for because I remember being there for something. Maybe it was one of the few days before, and then I remember the day that I got the call because I had to go to school, and I was at Northern Illinois. I remember, or NIU. I left the class, and my mom gave me a call, and I remember getting the news.
It was interesting because all along your mom talked about Dr. Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon here in town, and she really wanted him to see Rory, but for whatever reasons he couldn't. And mid-February, his schedule opened up and he looked at Rory's scans and he said, I think he's got water. He's got this liquid fluid buildup, and I can drain it. And I think you're going to see an incredible change in his demeanor. So Alexander brought hope back. I mean, your mom was really excited. I was really excited. That's why we had the candlelight vigil, for people to pray for the best outcome possible. And and it was scheduled for Tuesday, but at the last minute he had to reschedule it to like Thursday. So we had the candlelight vigil. Everybody goes home, and that night Rory crashed. Aunt Linda was here, and we called 911, and we go to OSF. And Alexander is there, and he brought me in, and he said, there's nothing I can do. He said, there's nothing I can do. And he said, but I will admit him. He said, I'll admit him to Janine's floor, and you can spend the night with him if that's what you want. And I said, yeah, I do. He was on a ventilator, and it was not my first time with a ventilator, so I knew what the outcome was. And I remember I laid in bed with him that whole night because I knew it was the last time I would touch him. It was the last time I would feel him. It was the last time I would stroke his hair. And I was like, I have to drink this in. I have to drink this in. I have to drink this in. And in the morning, I was talking with your mom, and, she said, are you ready? Are you ready? She said, I'll do it. I'll do it. So for the second time, your mom removes my person from the ventilator, knowing, what was to come. Did you guys know that?
I didn't know that with Rory.
Yeah, I knew that one.
Yeah. So it's funny because I said to my mom, just so everyone knows, I'm going to have Rory's casket brought to my house, and we're going to do the visitation here in my house. My mom goes and shares the news with everyone. And then my mom comes back, because I'm sure everyone else was scared to death, to talk to the raging lunatic. And my mom said, people are really, really concerned. They don't necessarily think that's a good idea. What's it going to be like for Sean to have his brother's dead body in your living room? Are you open to rethinking this? And I said, no, that's what we're going to do. Do you guys remember anything of that?
I remember going to your house and having it there. I remember thinking that that was different, that I've never had done that before. Um, and then did we sit around and all talk about him? So that's probably what I'm remembering. Yeah, I remember. I remember it being as, like, I don't know what the word would be. I remember it being special in that way as that could be. But yeah, nothing like other than, okay, that's what we're gonna do. That's what, we're gonna go to your house instead of did we even go to a church?
Uh,
Yes, we did. We did. We went to First Assembly, because then I remember music stands out to me always, and I remember the two songs that you played there. You played the guy with the ukulele,
the Hawaiian guy?
Hawaiian guy, and then the REM Bad Day.
That day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do you remember about that, Sam?
Wait, real quick, and there was that the Chrono.
The Zelda Trigger?
Yeah, Trigger. That's right.
What I remember about like the day he died, or just about the funeral, or
The whole, from when he died, us having the casket here, the memorial service.
yeah, I remember the day he died. I forget what day of the week it was. I think it was Monday, but I can't exactly remember. Usually my dad and I would wake up and we would drive to school together because he was a teacher at my school. And I woke up that morning and he wasn't there, and he didn't say anything to me. So I had to I had to walk to school. I forget how I got there, but my dad was my teacher first hour. And so I remember going into class and there's a sub there and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then they did announcements in the morning. And over the announcements, our principal said, keep the Zuba family in your prayers. And I vividly remember they said they're on death watch this morning. And I was like, what a terrible, I didn't know, I had no idea that Rory had taken a turn. But then I remember going to the hospital after somebody came and got me. And it was just like, I remember seeing my mom, and I've never seen her cry like that before.
Did you see Rory's dead body in the hospital?
I think I went into the room for just a second, but I couldn't. I think I did. I'm not sure if I stood outside or if I actually went in. But yeah, that was unbelievable. But then I remember the visitation at your house, and to me that it felt, you go to a visitation at a funeral home, it just feels uncomfortable, and not that it felt comfortable in any way at your house, but it just felt a little more at peace there almost, because that was Rory's home.
Yeah.
And then I remember, was there something with Japan that was on the casket or in the casket? Did you put a Japanese flag or a Japanese?
I'm absolutely positive I did. I mean, he loved Japan. Love Japan. Yes.
Yeah. So I remember that, and then I remember the service at First Assembly, and that was just, it was different because I think it was just kind of, it wasn't like a traditional funeral by any means, and I remember, I think it ended with just, you played Bad Day and then you just kind of walked off stage and that was it. The song just played out.
Yeah. That the last couple of weeks, Rory was up in the hospital bed in his bedroom because he was too weak to come downstairs, and he'd perk up in the afternoon, and he played that REM CD over and over and over again. And I mean, Bad Day, it was kind of ironic. I was like, well, we're kind of having a shitty day here. We didn't say this, but it's like, you're dying and I might kill myself. But other than that, it's all good. But he would just be bopping around, Bad Day, Bad Day. Now, if I'm working out and an REM song comes on, I just kind of stop, and I listen to it, and it brings me right back. I mean, it brings me right back. I want to share something with you guys about First Assembly. So because of the Caring Bird page that I had, I knew that his memorial service would be packed. I knew it would be packed. And we called all the big mega churches in town. We even looked at the Coronado. And Now, I want to preface this by saying Rory did not want to make his first communion because he didn't believe in that stuff. Rory had a heated discussion with grandma about what the hell was going on at Mass. And he told me he would study Jesus, but only from a historical perspective. So I'm the dad. I want to respect my 13-and-a-half-year-old son. So we called all the mega churches in town, and every single one of them said, yes, you may use our facility. It will cost you this much, and Pastor Johnson will be part of the service. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? No, Pastor Johnson is not going to get anywhere near my kid. First Assembly said, yes, we would be honored for you to use our space. There will be no charge whatsoever, and you may do whatever you like.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very different from any of the other places in town. So, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. And I think, you know, the fact that that's where your dad worked, that's where you guys went to school. I mean, that was an eye opener and a heart opener for me. So you said something, Dan, that I absolutely love. You said music stands out to me. Music stands out to me. And I have to believe that on some level, you know, these experiences that we just spent over an hour talking about impacted you guys, you know, your family, probably in ways that you're aware, but, you know, because like 99% of families in America, I mean, this is the first time we've had this conversation. Most human beings do not talk about this kind of stuff. They just don't. I do, because it's what I've devoted my life to. I mean, my life is about a new way to do grief. But I have to believe that all of this has informed and shaped somehow, some way, and colored who you guys are as adults. And what I want to say is, I don't know, is it 10 days ago, Sam? You sent me a link to a new song that you guys put together, the first release from your second album, that honestly, I have probably listened to 25 times now, 25 times. It, for me, ranks up there in the top 5. And I've been trying to figure out, why am I so drawn to this? Why am I so drawn to this? And this is what I'm coming up with. It's very contemporary. The lyrics are cutting edge, and I'm going to use the word new thought. I mean, new thought. The vocalist is spectacular. I mean, I love, love, love Matt. The nuances of the instruments with Haley playing on the flute, it's memorable, it's mind-boggling, but what it does is it takes me back to my youth. I mean, it reminds me of when I was in high school. It reminds me of when I was in college. It reminds me of the music in my early 20s, when you really, really listen to the lyrics. Like, remember the Don McLean song? It's like, what is he talking about? And you stopped and you read the lyrics and you talked to your friends about the lyrics. My point is, I love, 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 love the new CD. And yes, music stands out to me too. And I want to spend some time talking about a number of things. Number one, what's the name of your band?
The early sixes.
The early sixes. What does that mean?
It doesn't have much of a meaning. It was it kind of stems from when, you know, we were getting out of college, and we would kind of get together, and we'd get together for beers after work, and we all worked 9 to 5s. And so the thinking was, if we could have a beer early, like 6:15, the early part of 6 o'clock, that it was a good day, because we got out of work early, we got home, we had a beer. So we would call that the early sixes. And then as we started playing music, that kind of just became the band name.
And tell us about just a little bit, because I'm going to talk at length with the whole band, but how did this album, was the plan to create a second album?
I don't know if it was ever the plan. I mean, we started literally playing Rock Band with each other, as a video game, as a way. A lot of my buddies lived in Chicago. They would play before they went out. When I would go in to visit them, it was something we would all play. And I don't remember who it was, but we said, we all play instruments. Maybe we should, I don't know, try to cover some songs. And
Hey, I lost you. I lost your sound. Right. That's interesting.
I can take over the story.
All right. Dan, apparently you're not supposed to talk.
So yeah, we would play Rock Band, and then eventually we're like, yeah, we all play instruments. We've all been lifelong musicians. The four of us were in the band. And so we said, well, why don't we, grab our real instruments and see what we can do? So for years, we started in probably 2011, 2012, we would just play covers, of some of our favorite songs. And then after doing that for 3 years, we thought, well, it'd be really cool if we could write one song ourselves and then just get an MP3 of that. We had no intentions of releasing it. And then once we wrote one, we wrote another, and we kind of looked up and we had 10 songs. We were like, let's put an album out. So that was with our first album that came out in 2018. And then we kind of sat on that for a year and a half, and we all were writing. Music is a big part of all of our lives, and I think everything that's happened in our lives, both with the deaths of our family members, things that have happened in our personal lives, have kind of forced us to find a way to express, what some of those things feel like. So we were constantly writing songs, and then once COVID hit, there wasn't a lot to do. So we kind of got a little more aggressive, and all right, well, we've got all these song fragments. We have maybe 25 or 30 choruses or lyric riffs. Let's try to put these together. And in doing that, our second album, Navigate, came together.
So you guys wrote, produced, recorded a 10-song album, and the four guys in the band were never in the same room together.
Correct. And half in different states, different time zones, through text messages, little music memos on our phone, Zoom, sending files back and forth, and working on them, even like on just, Google files of like lyrics and stuff, making little tweaks here and there.
We've got, so to Dan's point, Dan lives in Jupiter, Florida. One person lives in the Chicagoland area. I live in LA, and another guy lives in Irvine, California. So we span across 3 time zones. And we never saw each other at one time.
I want to back up a little bit, because I know your dad and I know your mom. And yeah, I mean, your mom can hold her own on a karaoke night, but I would not say that either of them are known for being musical. So how do you explain this? Where did this love and this talent and this passion for music in you guys come from?
So I would say they're not musical, but definitely love music. I mean, there was always music playing when we grew up. So I think we attracted to music pretty early on. I mean, I remember taking guitar lessons back at St. Bernadette's when I was in 2nd grade, just very basic stuff for a couple of months, and then quitting. And then it would have been back somewhere around 93 or 94. I had heard a Dave Matthews song and just immediately became fascinated with the music. and got a guitar and started teaching myself. And then like to Sam's point, when I had just cut out there, my headphones just died. But you know, I would always just play. I've always been playing the guitar. My cousin makes fun of Sam and I. So many times we're just sitting, hanging around, and one of us goes and grabs a guitar and picks it up and strums it during the conversation like it's completely normal when it's really not. And so yeah, I've just always been fascinated by music. Going to concerts is one of my favorite things. Something, you know, my wife and I've done with Sam and my brothers and cousins, many friends, many times. So music is always one of my top passions, I would say.
So what instruments do you play, Dan?
I play the guitar. I've always been more of an acoustic guitar player, and kind of with this album, I play more electric and then acoustic on one of the songs, as well as a couple of them that didn't make the album. And then I didn't play on this album piano, but I've self-taught myself a little bit on that. But that's pretty much it. I kind of stay in that realm.
Did you, as an adult or as an older teen, did you take guitar lessons?
I didn't take guitar lessons until 4 years ago. I went to the band Men of Our Times.
I do.
Greg, the guitar player from there, I called him up. I reached out to Miles Nielsen and said, "Hey, are you interested in doing guitar lessons?" And he said, "No, you need to go talk to Greg." So I called Greg. I said, "Listen, Greg, I've been playing the guitar for 20 plus years, but I want to understand the theory behind it and really, kind of work on playing lead and solos and all that." So 2 years before I left to come down to Florida, I would go meet with him once a week, and we'd have a great time. I mean, that's pretty much my lessons. The rest of it was all self-taught.
So do you know Greg's a year older than me at Boylan?
I did not.
Yeah, so Greg's a friend of mine. Tell everyone the name of Greg's band and tell everyone what Greg's last name is.
So, well, it's Men of Our Time, and then it's us three men, or the three men, and it's Greg.
It's like Roth.
I was thinking about it before. I sent him a message, actually, when the song just came out. I saw him on Facebook, but I can't remember it. Greg something.
Do you know Men of Our Times? Sometimes they have a female lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly?
Oh, Kelly Stewart?
Yeah, Miles' wife.
Yeah, I've seen them play a few times. It's just amazing. Just a beautiful voice. Her and Greg played at one of the places in Rockford. Kristen and I went and watched them a few times. They're definitely great musicians.
Is it Greg Whitson?
Yes.
Whitson? Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Dan, how would you rate yourself as a musician?
That's an interesting question.
What's the 10 in this? 10
is fucking spectacular, as good as it gets.
6 or around 6.5 maybe.
Sammy, how would you rate Dan as a musician?
An 8.
Sam, what instruments do you play?
I played drums, bass guitar. I dabble in the acoustic and the electric. And then on this album, I played a lot of like synths and keyboards, just kind of some random weird sounds that you hear.
And did you both get a lot of experience at the playing at school and at church?
I did not.
Did you, Sam? You did, didn't you?
Yeah, I played in church from the time I was 10 until probably 21. I was playing 6 nights a week for most of my life at various services and practices. So yeah, that's kind of why I fell in love with music was through the church.
Did you ever take actual lessons?
I took drum lessons on a snare drum for about 3 months. And then I don't know why I stopped, but I eventually got a drum set and I just kind of figured out the rest. Dan taught me how to play acoustic. He showed me the chords, a couple chords. And then from there, kind of extrapolated that to bass, and then just kind of messed around on the piano myself.
Of the different instruments that you play, do you have a favorite?
Well, I played the drums the longest. I probably played drums for 20 years, but my problem with the drums is I was always stuck behind the drum set. I could never get out and move around the stage. So I picked up the bass, and I have a love affair with the bass. That's probably my favorite.
Okay. And how would you rate yourself as a musician?
Well, the thing is I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I don't know what notes I'm playing. I'm just kind of feeling it. So I would say a 6, maybe a 7.
Do you not read music?
No.
Neither one of us do.
Oh my God, makes this story even more fascinating. Does anyone in the band read music?
Nate.
Nate
Musical
Nate is a classically trained cellist. He is by far the best musician in the band by a mile.
That's why he's not on social media. He's studying his music.
Exactly.
Danny, how would you rate Sam?
I would say Nate as well. I mean, from a drumming standpoint, and clearly, I think in this album is from a musical lyric standpoint and where to put music inside of it from a production standpoint, really good.
So I know that I was born an artist. I'm an artist. I was born an artist into a family of athletes who had not a clue what to do with an artist, including my mom and dad. Would you say, Dan, were you born a musician?
No, I've never really thought of it that way.
How
But
about
I'm definitely not an athlete either. So
how about you, Sam? Were you born a musician?
I think I was. You know, I've always felt alive when I'm playing music. You know, it's just of all the things in life that I do, it's the thing that I feel the most at home when I'm doing.
The most at home. It'd be cool if you guys had a song called Home. So you have one single called Chase the Sun that is already out. How did you guys decide that that would be the first release?
it's kind of interesting. Sam, I'm curious how you remember it, but that was the first one that we started working on. And I remember when I first heard it, I thought this is, it has the same vein of our previous album, but it's definitely different. Like it's definitely a growth, if you will. And it was either the first or second one we finished. So a lot of how we chose these was working backwards to when they were finished, because there's a whole process and submitting them and getting them approved to go out, and you know, it's around a 6-week window. So like, I mean, the album finished, I think 4 weeks ago. You know, the last song, maybe it was 3 to 4 weeks ago. So by at that point we had already had Chase the Sun approved for distribution. And then we were going back and forth on how many we wanted to do. And then it just worked out from a timing standpoint. It would be Chase the Sun. And then this Friday is I'm Sorry, which is one that's Sam wrote. And we chose that one, if I remember correctly, because it's so different. It's different than anything that we've really, really done. And then there's a progression into the third single, which is Saved You, which is my favorite on the album. And then the fourth single is Navigate, which is the self-title into the actual album.
When does Saved You come out?
It would be 2 weeks from this. Wait, no, is it next Friday, Sam? The 25th?
Yeah, September. Yes. So I'm Sorry is this Friday, the 18th, and then Saved You is the 25th.
So I'm Sorry comes out this Friday, the 18th, and then Saved You comes out the next Friday. Yep. And where can people find your singles?
Pretty much anywhere. Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music. There's a YouTube video going to be with at least each one of these singles. So yeah, any streaming service.
Early6s.com will get you everything. It's all packaged there.
The early6s.com.
Actually, there's no "the" on the website, so it's early6s.com.
earlysixes.com. SIXES. One word, earlysixes.com. So they go to their favorite deliverer of podcasts. They put in early sixes, your stuff comes up.
Yep.
The name of the album is
Navigate.
So to me, what is memorable about you guys and pushes you way to the top of the heap is your lyrics. When I listen to your songs, and maybe this is just me, but I doubt it, there's a story. Chase the Sun, I'm assuming it did Matt write that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on one level, Matt and his family moved to California, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so that's the base inspiration for that song. But on a deeper level, that's my philosophy for life. I mean, I'm 63 years old, and for the rest of my life, I want to be aware of the sun, of the light, and I want to be conscious of not only bringing that into my life, but of literally becoming that light.
I had noticed that too. Before this album, before it came out, you had been posting a lot about chasing the light, and I thought, I wonder if he'll be interested when he hears this song.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm old enough and I've suffered enough, and I've got a really, really clear understanding today of who my version of God is. I don't believe in coincidence at all. You know, I believe that these people that we talked about, that Erin, that Trish, and Rory, they're in a place now. They're actually right here in this space, but they're powerful enough to help each one of us live a radiant life, filled with life, if we're up for it. And what I love about your album is if people really, really listen, you guys have laid out a roadmap. I mean, it's very similar to the first single from your first album, but your work is so in sync with my work that it is absolutely mind-boggling. And I want to say this again. I mean, I talked with Grandma about it. It's clear to me that I don't really know you, Dan, and I don't really know you, Sam, because when I listen to these lyrics, I'm like, where did this come from? You know, where did this come from? So the second single that comes out on September 18th is I'm Sorry. And I want to read this. I want to read this because to me, well, I'm going to just read it. It says, well, it's the end of the song. It says, well, I'm sorry for everything you've ever done to me. And I'm sorry for the way that I left you in LA. If I could rewind the time, I would rewrite every line, and I would take that second chance, be there till that final dance. I would undo all the things I never did. I would undo all the things I never did. That's deep, my friends. Well, I'm sorry for everything you've ever done to me. We do not hear lyrics like that, Sam. I mean, we don't. Where did that come from?
Well, first of all, when you write a song, you know, your dream is that someone who's not in the band listens to it and that it connects with them, right? And that they take the time to read the lyrics. So just for you, diving into that, I'm grateful for that. But to me, that song is, in many ways, it's about, when you're in conflict with someone that you love, and all you want is for that conflict to go away. And they think, and sometimes, the person that you love thinks that you wronged them, and you think that they wronged you. And so this song is basically just saying, like, look, I'm sorry. I just want this to go away. But really what I'm sorry for, in my opinion, is what you did to me. And so that's kind of the genesis of the song. It's when you love someone so much that you're willing to just apologize and move on. But in the back of your head, you kind of know that, like, but I still think that, you hurt me in this.
So how long did it, I don't know anything about writing songs. I know about writing books, but I don't know about writing songs. How long did it take you to write this song, I'm Sorry?
So this song, interestingly enough, this was written for our last album. And I pushed and pushed and pushed to get that song on the last album. But just as a band, we didn't collectively feel like it was ready. And if you could hear the original version, it's basically just an acoustic guitar and a cello. And the new version is kind of this electronic funk, kind of ethereal sound almost. So I wrote the verses and the chorus, I don't know, in about 20 minutes. I just kind of sat down with the guitar and I had this idea in my head. But the bridge, the part that you read, I'm sorry for the way I left you in LA, that took from the last album until we started working on this album, just to get those 6 or 7 lines right. Because I had ideas and it just never landed, but it took, almost 2 years to really come up with what we thought as a band was ready for an album.
So I've got 2 dead kids and a dead wife, and I have come to the place where I absolutely believe that everything happens for me. Everything. That's how much I'm loved. Everything happens for me. How grateful are you that song didn't land on the first album?
It's so funny. If we would have gone forward with that original version, we would have been missing out on something that's so special to us as a band. Like, we were talking, the 4 of us, and we felt like when we got that song right on this album, it almost like unlocked the rest of the album for us, because if you were to listen to our first album and then listen to the song I'm Sorry, it's 2 totally different planets. And that song kind of taught us that, we can push this and we can kind of break our mold. And we used that same logic to delay certain other songs that we wanted to put on Navigate. Dan's got a collection of songs that he's working on that we just decided, like, let's sit on these and see what comes from them.
So is there going to be a 3rd album?
Hopefully.
I mean, I would say at some point. I mean, again, we do this because it's fun. Like to Sam's point. I mean, if you were to look through our phones and on the notes section, I mean, I just know personally, there's like 7 to 10, could be songs, and I play the guitar every day. I'm always recording something and sending it to Sam. Oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Because it's just it's an outlet, and with us being across the country, it's a way to create and spend time with people in a different way than I mean, I see these 3 guys more than I did when they lived in an hour from my house in Rockford. So yeah, I could see us continuing to write music just because we love it.
So I don't write music, but I wrote this book. And honestly, like, when I read this book today, I think this is the most beautiful thing I've ever read. And I'm kind of stunned. It's like, who came up with that phrase? Or I love how those 2 sentences go together. I've never read this before. This is the most powerful thing. I mean, it's new to me over and over and over again. So I'm wondering, Sam, when you're, sitting in your home in Southern California and you listen to the finished I'm Sorry, what do you feel? What do you feel now when you listen to that?
There's definitely a piece of me that thinks like, where did this come from? You know, how did we do this together? But I think more than anything, I just feel grateful because the way that we worked on all these songs is, you know, the person that wrote it would kind of take the first pass and they would take it as far as they could. And then they would send it to, you know, another bandmate, and then they would kind of add on to it. And when I did my first piece of the song, you know, it was 1/10 of what you hear on the album. And so I'm just so grateful to the other guys that they took something that was really special to me and they poured their talents into it. And then they put something out that I just think is so special, you know, and whatever becomes of this album, like I'm just so grateful for everyone's talents that came together to make what's really special, you know, to us.
So it sounds like in the end, I'm Sorry was really a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I would say that about all the songs, you know, like whoever wrote the song came up with the lyrics, the chord progression, had a vision for it. But then, you know, when I put that on paper and then I send it to Dan and he adds, you know, his vision on top of that, it's just like, wow, I never would have got here on my own, you know? So it's just so cool to see everyone kind of pour their talents in to make something like that.
So you guys mentioned the progression and the expansion on all levels when you look at the first album compared to the second album. And Danny, we have a mutual friend. I do not know how to pronounce his last name, so I call him CW. You know him as Chris something.
Wakowiak.
What's his last name?
I've always thought of it as Chris Wakowiak.
CW, whatever the hell your last name is. We would not be doing this podcast if it wasn't for him. He's the one that will listen to the podcast. He'll manipulate the sound. He'll attach the intro. He'll get it out there. When he listened to it, I have video of him. It's the third episode, actually. I'm holding the phone and he's listening to the first single and reading the lyrics. And you can literally see how his face is just lighting up. And what he said is, Matt's voice is night and day. I mean, he pointed out the sophisticated instrumentation and how beautiful, it's all in sync with each other. And he talked about the level of lyrics, the complexity of the lyrics in the second album compared to the first album. To me, that is high praise. Danny, I mean, you know the man, you know his history. What does that feel like to you?
No, that's definitely a pleasant surprise. I know Chris very well. I worked for him at Kryptonite for 5 years, I think is what it was. Kryptonite was a music venue / bar in downtown Rockford. It's no longer there. But when I bartended, we had live bands in at least three to 4 days a week. Chris was very particular in the music that he allowed in there. Chris was very particular in the level of the lighting of the place. So Chris is a very particular person. So for him to listen and give positive feedback, that was pretty cool to hear.
I refer to him as a creative genius. I've never met anybody like him.
He's very creative. He's definitely a visionary person.
Yeah, I also think he is probably the kindest, gentlest, most patient man that I've ever met. I cannot believe how kind and patient he is, with me. Do you have a favorite single on the album?
For me, it changes. just kind of depending on I mean, the collection of the album is very special to me, but each one will change kind of depending on the day. But I do think Saved You stands out to me as my favorite. I listened to that one and I think, who the hell are these guys?
And Sammy, you said that's your favorite?
Yeah, that one's probably the most special to me. Yeah,
So-
that's it.
So that's coming out September 25th.
Mhm.
Why is it your favorite? Why? I mean, I do not want to go. That conversation we could have later if it's to be had at all. But what is it about that makes it your favorite, or you think it's so special?
I would say for me, if you when you listen to it, if you really listen to the lyrics and the music, and to be a part of how, like, the first iteration of that to, you know, kind of what you hear now, it's such a emotional journey in a, you know, 4 minute or whatever length of a song that it is. The build up musically is just really, really cool, I think. And when I heard the first version with Matt singing on it, I got goosebumps. And when I listen to it now, and I've shared it with a handful of people, I've had a handful of people respond that they had tears listening to it, or that they felt really moved by it, and how it ends in a way of just almost like exhaustion. It's like, you know, this is it. This is, tried everything, gave everything, and this is it. And it's a perfect way to sum up the journey of the album, in my opinion.
Sam, 3 adjectives that to you describe the song Saved You.
I'd say raw is one. Passionate. There's a lot of passion in that song. The third, for me, it was freeing to write that song.
Green.
Yeah.
So I've told you this. I mean, I love that song. I have listened to it over and over and over again. The word that I use is it's haunting. It's haunting. I mean, that song haunts me. I want to lean in. I want to know more. I want to know who wrote this. What is this about? What happened here? Unlike many songs that I've ever heard, I mean, I just want more. I want more. I want more. So as the songwriter, Sam, again, you're sitting back in that chair, you know, you listen to that song. What does that feel like to know this came out of me?
It's a little surreal with this one. And even to hear where it started and where it ended. When I wrote this song, my vision for it was that it was just an acoustic song. There was just an acoustic guitar and a little bit of cello, because I wanted the message of the lyrics to shine through. And then I remember I sent the acoustic version to the band, and you know, everyone kind of thought like, hey, I think we have something here. And then Matt, our lead singer, kind of went away for a couple days and sent back this version where, you know, it had this tremendous build, and then we added drums to it. So to me, it's really special. It's just another example of, you know, I had my vision for the song, but the song was supposed to be something else, and I'm just so grateful and glad of where it ended.
So he recorded the vocals, sent you guys the vocals, and were you guys like, yep, this is it?
When he sent that vocal track, I think he sent it to me first because he knew it was a personal song. He sent it to me, and usually I'll listen right away and I'll text him back. I didn't text him back for like an hour because I listened to it maybe 10 times because because I couldn't believe, you know, what he had done to the song and where he had taken it. It's just, it's his, in my opinion, his most impressive vocal performance on the album. You know, the notes that he hits and that he was able to take the message that I had written and just take it to the next level, you know, with the passion. You can hear it in his voice, you know, when you listen to that song.
When you were listening to it over and over again, did you bring Katie in? Did she listen to it?
Yeah, I did. I listened to it. Once I heard it once, I grabbed Wally and I took him for a walk, and I was like, I just need time to sit with this. And then I came back and listened and showed it to her. And she said the same thing that Dan said. She said, who are you guys? Who wrote this? How did you guys do this? And that was before we even had cello in it. It was before we had Dan's electric part. So it's still very raw, but you just knew that, like, there's something here.
So what was your answer to her when she said, who wrote this? Who are you guys?
I said, the stars aligned, and this song just came together.
When I think about my books, I mean, I firmly believe that the books came through me. Does that language resonate with you at all?
Yeah, totally. This song for me, it was something I don't want to sound cheesy here, but I felt like I needed to write this. Like I had that line of, I should have saved you, but I didn't know how. I had that in my head for months and months, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I didn't want to write it because I knew that it was going to uncover some emotions that I just didn't want to deal with. So I just kept putting it off. And one Saturday afternoon, I just picked up a guitar, and I had this riff from a song, one of the first songs I ever wrote when I was like 16, and the song is terrible, but the guitar part is kind of cool, the chord progression. And so I was like, what if I took that and kind of threw it over this line that I have? And then the song just came together in about 5 minutes after that. The whole thing was written and done.
So I should have saved you, but I didn't know how. I should have saved you, but I didn't know how. I think that applies to millions and millions and millions of human beings in millions of different situations. You said that you knew on some level that if you were gonna, go into this, then it would invite you to deal with things that would be painful and you weren't sure you really wanted to. Was the process of writing it and recording it and releasing it, I mean, has that been healing for you?
Yeah, 100 times over. Both me personally and, the meaning behind the song, the things that I'm dealing with. Like, there's been healing with relationships because of that song, because it was something that I had in my heart. I knew this. I knew that I should have done more, in this situation, and I didn't know what to do in the time. And you look back, and it's so clear, like, oh, I should have just done A, B, and C. But when you're in that moment, you don't know what to do.
Well, and you look back now from this wiser seat that you're sitting in, the age that you are, it's in hindsight that, I have a friend. I mean, I firmly believe that every single human being, every single day is living with grief. And with the coronavirus, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter, the election coming up, which has the potential to change the course of the world one way or the other, we are dealing with so much grief. And most people want to walk around it or deny it or, stuff it down or drink a 6-pack or take 3 Xanax, et cetera, et cetera. But what my friend said is we have to, in order to heal, we have to allow the flames of that pain to literally burn us to the ground, to burn us to a heap of smoldering ashes. And that's necessary. But from those ashes, if we keep taking a step, one foot in front of the other, then we rise. That's the light that's rising. That's the phoenix rising. And it sounds like that's the experience that you had, seeing this song through.
Yeah, I can completely agree, and that resonates with me a lot. And not only did it do that for me, but when I shared the song with the person who I wrote it for, did that with them too, and with our relationship. And it was when I shared that song, the song was written for my mom, and I talked to her about this, and she was okay with me sharing that. When I shared it with her, I typed up the email 10 different times and deleted it. And I thought maybe I just will never share this, and I'll just have written this song and it was my way. And when I shared it to her with her, it was almost like our relationship was reborn in many ways, because what I had said in that song is something that I knew she needed to hear.
That's what I was wondering. Was there a moment when you thought, oh my God, I cannot release this to the world. I'm going to just pull back. No, I'm not willing to be that vulnerable and that transparent.
Yeah, there was definitely times when I thought, maybe this is a little too deep, and if you knew me, if anyone knew me, they would know exactly what the song was about and why I wrote it and who I wrote it for. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking. It's definitely nerve-wracking.
So why did you decide to go forward? Why did you lean in, and why did you say yes to it?
I think the rest of the band would have killed me if I didn't release this, or if we didn't release this. But in the back of my mind, I believed that there would be a positive outcome from it. I didn't think that me being open and honest would be problematic. I thought the opposite, that this would be helpful.
In all honesty, though, if you would have said to the other three guys, I've really, really, really thought about this. I can't do it. I'm not ready. This is not going to be part of the album. Would they have respected you?
Yeah, I think 100%. Because to Dan's point earlier, the reason why we do this, it's not so that, we can go on tour with Mumford next year. I mean, if that happens, that would be awesome. But we write these songs for us, and if nobody hears them, nobody hears this album, we still have this piece of art that we created, that in our opinion is perfect. It represents the very best of us. So the song still would have existed. We still would have done what we set out to do. So I don't know, Dana, unless you disagree, let me know. But
I mean, to Sam's point, I mean, we would have always had it. Our immediate families would have heard it, and that's special in of itself. I mean, that's the coolest thing about doing this is it's a type of art that you can, like, it's what I set out in the very beginning to record something in a good quality that was better than recording on my phone back when I was in high school. So something that, that we can listen to later on, and it's in a position that we can listen to it and other people can listen to it, and maybe they hate it, maybe they like it, maybe they love it, maybe it resonates with them, maybe they have a completely different interpretation from what I thought it was, from what the original writer thought it was. I think that's so cool. I think it's cool. I mean, I do that with my favorite artists. I listen to songs and I'm like, oh, I want to know what that song's about. It's done this to me, or I think of it means this. And then you go and like read up on it, and you're like, oh wow, they were talking about something different, but it still meant something to me in its own way. So that's exciting.
And I think for the listener, that is going to be true of all 10 songs on the album. They are going to want to know who wrote this. I need to know more about that person. How old are they? Are they married? Do they have kids? Because we're all, applying the lyrics to ourselves, but we also want to create a story about, where did this come from? I'm wondering, Sam, you're young, you're going to continue to write music, yes, there will be painful experiences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're all human. Do you think the next time that you decide to really dive deep and let the world see, your soul, your heart, your life experience, having released this, do you think the next time it might be a little bit easier?
So it would depend on the subject matter. But yeah, I think this song has given me confidence that, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable and to be open, even in such a public forum. Because
And
the dance point, you know, anyone could hear this song and take, and I hope they do. I hope they find their own meaning in it. You know.
do you think, is this the most vulnerable, the rawest song on the album?
Um,
That's a good question. I think there's a couple other. I mean, that'd be a good question to ask the rest of the group when we're all together, because you know Matt wrote a decent amount of them and Sam wrote the other decent amount. I think they could be vulnerable in their own way, but
well, so yeah, the thing I'd add to that too is I think they all are raw and vulnerable because our influences are, you know, Ben Gibbard of Death Cab for Cutie, who he doesn't just write, you know, songs like I'm getting in my pickup truck and I'm going to go have some beers with my boys. He doesn't write songs like that, you know, or Chris Carrabba from Death Cab, or from Dashboard Confessional. All of those songs, and that's like the influence of the band. These songwriters who pour their heart into every song, and there's no fluff songs on the album. And I kind of think that that's the type of band that we aspire to be, is to not just put out, you know, fun songs about drinking and partying or doing whatever, but we really want to, you know, show who we are and show what we've experienced through these songs.
But what I've found in my work is that when I'm raw and vulnerable and honest, then I give the next person permission to be raw and vulnerable and honest. And my prediction will be that due to the unbelievable success of this album that we're going to collectively create, on the third album, you guys will be comfortable going even deeper and even deeper and even deeper, and really, really connecting to the deepest heart of those people drawn to listen. As I said, I've listened to it 20, 25 times. And what I kept thinking is, I know there's a virus. I have to see these guys perform it live. I have to see these guys perform it live. Have you guys thought about how, you know, through Zoom or some online platform, you'll be able to literally, you know, perform it live for the world?
close to live, not exact live. There's some challenges with latency, with just instruments and being all over the place. But we are actually, this is, Sam, is it Rock the Vote or is it?
It's I Voted.
I Voted. So they reached out and they're looking for just a ton of artists, like, you know, to either do something live or record a set of 1 song to 10 songs. And then they're going to play it all on November 3rd, I think is what it is. So we agreed to do that. So we're actually going to be recording, you know, so we're all going to be in our rooms. We're going to play it live. So it's not going to be the studio version that you've heard. So it's going to be a variation of that. And then that will be played on there, you know, in succession, as part of their overall event for the day.
Yeah, it's an initiative to increase voter turnout. So it's like a digital event where your admission ticket is your voting ballot, I believe. You take a picture of it, you get into this event, and then during the election night, they're going to be live streaming all these songs that people are playing, and we're fortunate to be one of those bands that's going to be playing.
How'd they find you guys?
They reached out. They sent an email to our main email address on early6s.com, and they said, we've noticed a decent amount of streams from the Florida area, and that's an important state for you know, for both parties. It's a nonpartisan group, and so they, you know, I think there's going to be a ton of bands. Like, I think it's in the hundreds of bands that are doing this, and so we thought that'd be kind of cool, you know. Let's see how these sound in a different version. So we haven't landed on exact. I think we're doing 2 or 3. We're gonna do Chase the Sun. We're gonna attempt to do I'm Sorry, I think, and then we might do one off the first album.
So you think they've selected several hundred bands?
I think so.
So I would suggest that there's probably several million bands out there that we could access through YouTube. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, easily.
So somehow, some way, you guys cut through and were selected. That's huge. That's huge. So it's going to be easy for the listeners to remember because it's on election day. I mean, Tuesday, November 3rd is election day. So you vote, and I would assume you either vote by mail or you vote in person, and you, whatever your receipt is, that receipt is your ticket to, quote, get in and listen to all this cool cutting edge music.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on that.
That's pretty cool. We're actually trying to figure out how to. I mean, we've seen a handful of bands do that on YouTube, where you got the 4 boxes and everyone's you're listening because you got to be on the right timing with other people, and then you're playing, and then we're sending it all. So it'll be a cool experience.
Yeah. So you will let us know when those are available.
Yep.
All right. There's one other song I want to talk about before we wrap this up, and I want folks to know that tomorrow night, I'm talking with Matt, who's the lead singer, and my hope is that on Tuesday, I'm going to connect with Nate, who's the actual musician I learned from you guys. And then Wednesday night, I'm going to talk with the whole band. And the intention that we've set is 1 million likes. We want to get 1 million likes. And as CW is going to propel me to get 1 million subscribers on all my social media outlets, if every single one of those people likes one of your songs, it's done. I shouldn't have said if. When every single one of those subscribers likes one of your songs, and you know what's going to happen? They're going to like all your songs. So I'm going to have 1 million subscribers, and you guys are going to have 10 million likes. And that will make me very, very happy. So I have a mom who just turned 88. She's your grandma. And her husband, my dad, your grandpa, died a year and a half ago, April. He was 88. He died 2 days after his birthday. And during the virus, I go visit her 3 or 4 times a week. And I got to write my dates down. But Sam, the day after you sent me the press kit, I went over to my mom's house and I was like, sit down. You got to listen to this song. And I played the song home. And, she's 88, so she's looking up and she's talking to me as you guys are singing, and I'm going, shh, 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 listen, 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 you got to listen. So I want to read the lyrics. I gotta compose myself here because this is really emotional for me. Close your eyes, begin to breathe. You'll see the world as it's meant to be, because all you have is all you need. And where you are is where you're meant to be. Close your eyes, begin to breathe. You'll see this world as it's meant to be, because all you have is all you need. If where you are is home, then it's where you're meant to be. Matt does a much better job of presenting those lyrics to the world, but I work with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are in excruciating pain because someone that they love has died. If they could, not if, because this is so in sync with what I teach. When they're able to internalize these lyrics and they become a piece of their heart, they become a piece of their essence, then they are home. Then they are home. If every human being was brought up knowing this and believing this, and it was reinforced in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, all through high school, all through college, we not only would we live in peace, but there would be no social injustice. There would be no people going to bed at night without food. There would be no homeless people. So Dan, how old are you?
38.
Explain to me, who are you and where did these lyrics come from?
So
All you have is all you need, and where you are is where you're meant to be.
So this song is a special one because it's actually, I can't take the credit for the lyrics. It's Sam and I back and forth. This is an interesting song. I wrote the music to it and the melody in very short order. Like I pick up the guitar, I play riffs, I have tons of recordings. This one kept building on itself pretty quickly, and I sent it to Sam, and he thought, we got something here. I knew the theme of what I was going for with it, and then I had, so literally, Sam, I don't know, what do you think we spent? Like, weeks. Maybe it was 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of going back and forth. The theme was always of what it ended up being, but the little nuances of the words and stuff. Sam has a incredible ability of taking. If you look at my writing, I think I can do a pretty good job from a poetic standpoint. Sam helps me take that, or with his own ideas, adding to it to fit from a lyrical standpoint. And I honestly don't even remember who did which part, because there were some of them we were working on, like, I got these two words. What's the word we're missing in the middle? We want to make sure we don't sit here and rhyme every word, because now we're Dr. Seuss, So there was, overall, that was just a really special song for me to be able to write that and do it with Sam.
And
Sure.
are you doing it over Skype, or are you on the phone, or you're texting, or what?
All of the above. We did texts. We actually did a Zoom call. We set up for an hour, and we were sharing a Google Doc, and we had like the main part, and then I had some, Sam had some. We would comment in and out. After a while, we took a break, and then we came back. It was everything.
It took months to get this song. Like, Dan had sent the music, and we listened to it, and we felt like this song is telling a story. And we debated for a while if it even needs lyrics, because when we listened to the music, it just felt like it was telling the story of getting back home. The song was called Home before we had written a single lyric.
Yep.
And yeah, it was just, this was one that we pulled the lyrics out of this song. Like, they were there for us. We had to find them. And it took forever to get it right.
So I know a little bit about your background. I know where you guys went to school. I know where you went to church. Where you are is where you're meant to be. My hunch is that wasn't taught to you, growing up here in Rockford. All you have is all you need. What's the root of that? What's the genesis of that for you guys personally?
So the whole genesis of that song to me was the third song that I was saying to my children. The very first song that I wrote or we collaboratively wrote was "I Want That For You." I came to the group and I had this riff and I said, I hear "I Want That For You" and I want it to be a song about what I want for my kids. The second song that I wrote on the first album was called "Be Okay." And I wrote that specifically for my daughters from one day. Like, it's funny how songs can happen. I wrote that song in 10 minutes, music and lyrics, after my daughter came home from school and was in tears after how she was treated in that particular day. I remember vividly sitting at the kitchen table, Kristen saying dinner's ready. I'm like, nope, I got to finish this. And so to me, as my oldest is 17, my middle is 15, and my son is 10, you start to think of it in the terms of what's next for them, and that they're going to be, in 2 years from now, my oldest is going to go away from college or go away to college. And so it's, on one hand, this story of, remember when you go out there in this world, like you have what you need, like you have it. And wherever you go, I'm going to be here, your quote home, is not just a house. It's not the house that we're at. It's the home of, where our family is. And actually the song kind of pivoted a little bit more. Recently I had my parents came down and visited us. And then when they left, I was chatting with Sam, and this is where, again, Sam is just great with words. He was like, how was it? And I said, it's great. It was great seeing, family. And, but what's tough is I hate that my friends and family are all over the country, and we're down here in South Florida. And, Sam said, like, it sucks, but I really believe that everyone's where they're supposed to be right now. And then I said, dude, that's the missing piece to the rest of the song. That's, because home of itself can then become a, again, it's not the building, it's not the house, that you grew up on whatever fill in the blank street. Home is a place that you can create with your friends and family.
So for you, it sounds like being a father to a 17, 15, and 10-year-old, that informed the essence of the message of this song.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Sam, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay. So a 31-year-old, explain to me, what is the seed for a 31-year-old believing that everyone is where they're supposed to be? Everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be. What's that rooted in for you?
I would have to give a lot of credit to my parents there. Growing up, my mom was always a big believer that everything happens for a reason, that things aren't always what they seem. You may perceive something one way and say, oh my God, the worst has happened, but maybe it's the best, maybe it's the best thing that's happened. And then my dad, especially over the last few years, as he's gone through things both health-wise and personally, he always said, things are going to work out, things are going to be okay. So I think that's, over the last 2 years, our immediate family went from all 5 of us and our spouses and kids living an hour away from each other to now we are quite literally on the East Coast in Rockford and on the West Coast. And while it sucks and while I hate that I can't see my nieces and nephew and my brothers, I don't want Dan to move to California right now, because I know that that's exactly where he's supposed to be right now, and that's where his kids are supposed to be. And I would love to have my parents out here, but they're getting to reconnect in Rockford, and it's the 2 of them for the first time ever in their entire life. So that's where they're supposed to be, in Ben and Allie in San Diego. Ben's thriving in his job. Allie's health is awesome right now. Everyone's just plugged in where they're supposed to be. And though it sucks, like Dan said, home is not a physical place. Home is what we have together. The fact that we're on a Zoom call right now and we're spread across the country, we don't need to be in the same place to be home. it's deeper than that.
So in my first book, I quote Marianne Williamson, who defines a miracle as a shift in perception. And one of the things that I teach is that every human being, in every moment, we get to decide if we're going to move in the direction of peace or if we're going to move in the direction of pain. And what you just explained is your shift in perception, and you're deciding to move in the direction of peace, that this is as it is. And when I believe that this is as it's supposed to be, that brings me peace.
Yeah.
And you
Exactly.
know what? You know what, folks that have stuck with us for 2.5 hours, I would not say that Dan's life sounds like it sucks, and I would not say that your life, Sam, sounds like it sucks. In fact, what you guys did in this pandemic is create this exquisite 10-song album. It's been perfect for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's taking the. I mean, there's obviously a lot of negatives in the world right now, and the pandemic has been challenging for many people, and for us as well in certain ways. And it was an outlet to take the situation that we have, and I mean, we can't go anywhere, can't travel anywhere, can't leave the house. So how do you not dwell on the negatives and try to come up with something positive? And I think we were able to do that, because we'll always look back on this time period and say, well, you know what, at least, I mean, this came from it. That's pretty cool.
Let people know when the album comes out.
October 9th.
October 9th. And the name of the album is?
Navigate.
And how do they find it?
It'll be on Apple Music. It'll be on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music.
Yeah, everywhere that you can stream music, you'll find it. Early6s.com will have it all too.
Early6s.com. So when you listen to this, when you guys are both sitting in your chair, Danny, your kids are in bed or in their rooms or whatever. Sam, your little doggy's asleep somewhere in your lap, wherever. And you sit down and you exhale and you listen to this song Home. How do you feel?
I feel great listening to it. It makes me happy. Again, I have this again, you hear the iterations of these songs. So like, if you could hear what the first iteration sounds like, and this was, I think, Sam, the last song we finished on the album. So I was so excited to see how it would end up, like, as the parts, like as Matt landed on his vocals, and then as Nate added his cello to it. And then I also was able to work with my daughter on it as well. She plays the flute, and I don't know much about the instrument, and her and I worked back and forth one afternoon, found a couple cool notes, couple cool parts to add to the bridge and the final chorus. Sent it to Sam. He said, "This is perfect." And then to kind of see where it ended up at the end, it's a great gift to have.
I think I already said her name. Are you comfortable saying your daughter's name?
Yeah, Haley.
Yeah, Haley. Haley, we're saying your name. You're playing the flute. Might be an odd question. I don't know. Are you guys proud of yourself?
Very proud of what we put together. Yeah, not in a negative. Just like when you look at what we did. And again, if nobody, honestly, Tom, if you're the only one that listened to it outside of our family that have listened to it 100 times, and the fact of that you listened to it start to finish and went back
25 times.
Check. Like,
yeah,
I'm that's the coolest thing in the world to me. So I'm very proud to say that I contributed to that album in some small way.
Are you proud, Sam?
Yeah, I am. One thing I said to the band when we finished it and we kind of listened to it together was, I don't want to speak for anyone else in the band, but for me, this is the very best that I have musically, you know, and it may not be Rock and Roll Hall of Fame worthy, you know, but it's the best I got, you know, and I'm very proud of what we put out.
Yeah. So I'm going back to my frame of reference. This was the best that I had. This was the best. I had a friend of mine edit this. I was really, really nervous to hear her response because I really respected her. She said, Tom, this is your masterpiece. This is your masterpiece. You know, I was like, Amy thinks it's my masterpiece. And then, you know, something was bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. This came out. This is 100. This is 100. This is 10,000. This is 10,000. I mean, this is the evolution of me. This is who I became. I'm working on my third book. It's spectacular. I mean, it is unbelievable. It's a million. It's a million. So I honestly believe that we are so powerful. We don't really have a clue as human beings how powerful we are. One of the reasons that I'm doing the podcast is to let people know that there is a power in intention, in setting the intention. And when we can create a vision to support that intention, and we know what that vision feels like, that's why I've asked you guys, when you sit in the chair and you listen to the song, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? So growth, expansion, change, creation comes with intention, with vision and feeling, and then with action steps. It's a formula. It's mathematical. It's all rooted in energy. And I also believe that, you know, what we put out vibrates at a certain level, and like a magnet, it attracts it. It attracts it. So I'm going to get 1 million subscribers to my podcast, and the action steps I'm going to take, because I've already set the intention and I've already held the vision. I'm holding the vision and I know what it feels like, that you guys are going to get 1 million likes. You're going to get 1 million likes on this album. And I understand where you're coming from, Dan. And I'm not sure that you actually came out and said this, Sam, because I don't really believe that you believe this. But Sam, Dan, you said that it's okay if it's just family that listens to it. And if I listen to it 25 times, that's cool. For me personally, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. I mean, I'm putting that out in the universe right now. The people that follow me, the people that have come to trust me, this is a spectacular album with deep, rich, meaningful, spiritual, if I can use that word, lyrics, with melodies that stick with you. Not one song, not two songs, all the songs. I mean, when I start to hear, you know, track number 4, Key Up, I'm like, oh my God, I love this song. You know, it's like I'm going on a ride. We're going on a ride with this one. Oh, this one again. I'm going on a ride. Amy said that this, for me, was my masterpiece. I will say it. I mean, I think it's a masterpiece. I mean, I think it's just so, so, so beautiful. And it's a surprise to me. It's a surprise to me at 63 that I'm having this conversation with you guys, and that you're going to allow me to go on this ride with you. So I'm wondering, you know, as we wind down, is there anything else that you want the listener to know about this album?
I think I think the sense of how the journey of how it was created, how it's 4 friends, 2 siblings, you know, but 4 friends, writing, you know, mixing, producing across the country, and growing closer as people, and growing with what we put together from a musical standpoint, and really the experience, just from start to finish to where it's at. It's quite the journey to get to where we're at, and I think that the album tells a really good story from start to finish. So
I
we
agree.
hope you enjoy it.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I agree with what Dan said. I might add, I hope that, if someone were to give this album a listen, that they try to take a deep listen into what's going on in some of the lyrics, because I think there's some really interesting messages there. And also, it's just kind of cool that this came about, in this global pandemic where, it's doom and gloom everywhere. And, we kind of had a choice. We could, because it's not easy to make an album. It's a lot of work. It's very stressful, a lot of late nights, because we don't do this full time. We have jobs during the day. But we made a choice that we were going to invest in this, and invest in something that we love. And the output was something that we think is really beautiful. So it's just kind of cool that in this really dark time, like, you can still find beauty in things.
So the album's called Navigate.
Navigate.
The first single is out. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. The name of the band is Early Sixes. You can contact these guys at earlysixes.com. Correct?
That's right.
Thank you, guys. The conversation continues.
Thank you.